Okay, so a friend of mine suggested that I touch on this because, as someone who was raised in England, Felixstowe, as you might remember, um, I know exactly who Robbie Williams is. And you might remember last year they made a movie about that guy, and Americans are like, who's that fellow? Why are they making a movie about him? And why did he choose to be a CG ape in this thing, right? And then all the British people were all over TikTok and social media saying, "All the Americans thick? Are they trying to convince us that they've never heard of Robbie Williams? Robbie Williams is one of the greatest pop stars since Oasis, right? Like like the amount of British people that want to act like he's some world famous guy and then be shocked that no one's heard of him is, I don't know, it's typical British humor, right? And so I wanted to explain to people who don't get it what that's all about. So Robbie Williams he's a pop star, right? He's a guy who's made music and got music published and produced and put out and put into the charts on some degree. And his kind of claim to fame is he's a funny, nice guy. He's a person that he's kind of a socialite like a Paris Hilton, and he's spread himself out through all of these people, and bumping into all these celebrities. He's done good at making a lot of the people he bumps into either feel good or laugh or have a good time or whatever. And you know, most people outside of America don't take him serious because of the fact that they've missed out on everything he does in England and in the UK and through Europe. And people just think, well, look, he's putting on all these concerts, so he must be a pop star. And no, and that's part of the joke, I think. As an American, as an outsider, I'm going to tell you that's part of the joke. The whole thing is the whole thing with Robbie Williams is performance art. And we don't really have anybody in the United States like this. But if you're old enough, you might remember Dame Edna Everage. And I'm going to compare Dame Edna Everage to Robbie Williams and explain to you that they're one and the same kind of, they're coming from the same place with humor. And some people are going to be horrified that I'm even making these kind of aspersions about Robbie Williams because they only see him as a legitimate pop star, and he's not. The dude is outright just a goofy comedian, kind of like a Sacha Baron Cohen, who is very tongue-in-cheek. And Dame Edna Everage, if you didn't know, is a fellow named Barry Humphries, who was a wonderful actor, just a beautiful actor. And the guy, he does so much with his face that when you see him in films, one, you don't realize it's him because he's been in a lot of movies. And two, his face is so expressive, you can't help but look away. I'm thinking about, he was in a movie called Immortal Beloved with Gary Oldman. And he plays this guy named Metanique, who basically gets the courts to, he kind of blackmails the courts to give Beethoven his nephew Carl, right? And then so you see the scene with Barry Humphries, Dame Edna Everage, and Gary Oldman. And if you know anything about that movie, you'll know that during production, Barry Humphries couldn't stop making the cast laugh, and everybody loved him. I've seen Dame Edna Everage several times, and when I think he passed away, but when he was touring and he was live, I've seen him in my life a few times as Dame Edna Everage, and then he would come out as Barry, come out as Dame. It's a very funny kind of pantomime, typical British humor, right? Robbie Williams is much in the same vein, but he's emulating a pop star and he's playing this pop star role. And one of the things that he's good at is A-listers, and he's good at making A-listers feel good and normal about their normal lives. Like, for example, he's very good friends with Bono and U2. He's very good friends with all the guys from Oasis. He's very good friends with, name a British pop star, Paul McCartney. Name another British pop star. There's a lot of them out there. I could name a long laundry list, but what's the point of that? From like Paul Weller, all the guys from Madness, then you get the Spice Girls. All of these people, they love Robbie Williams because when they're not doing their thing, he's the guy that throws these private parties and they'll get together and this is what they do. And he really makes people feel good, and he's a good person to be around. He has his vices, he has his problems, he's had a lot of issues, he's had a lot of ups and downs, he's had a lot of success and loss. But at the end of the day, the dude's a typical British comedian who's emulating and playing this major role of a pop star. And so people in America see this and they don't get it. And while he was playing this kind of weird role as a pop star, he made music that ended up selling. And so that's more tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of like Stephen Colbert emulating Bill O'Reilly on Comedy Network for all those years. It was a send-up is what they call it, right? Stephen Colbert was doing a send-up of conservative media. Robbie Williams is doing a send-up of British pop stars. And, hence the reason, why that movie was so outlandish that came out last year. There's 6 minutes for the American audience on the distillation of who Robbie Williams really is and what the deal is with that guy. So if you tried to wrap your mind around him and couldn't, now you know why, right? Because it's a send-up. He's essentially like the pop era's Dame Edna Everage. And you see this stitch I did? That's the perfect kind of peek behind the curtain, which that's the perfect definition to peek behind the curtain, see who is this guy really do, and he's taking the piss out of like Morrissey, and he's making fun because that's what he does. All the best. Choose life. There's food for thought for you.